My wife called me an abusive husband because I didn't want to fulfill her wish. Does that make me a bad husband? But let's clarify. My wife wanted to spend one night with a man, with a stranger, and come back to me. And because I forbade her, I am now a bad husband. Sharon was not just unhappy. She was furious, specifically with me, her husband, Frank Miller. How did I know she was mad? It was obvious. As I drove us home from a party hosted by a couple she knew, Anne and Hank Vanderlink, she sat hunched in her seat as far from me as possible while still being inside the car, with a scowl that could curdle milk. What had caused her anger? Well, truth be told, I had given her every reason to be upset. What a fool I was. I had managed to ruin her entire evening. How? By making a simple yet crucial mistake. I had grabbed the wrong key. You see, the Vanderlinks' parties had a certain risque element, something my dear wife had suddenly decided she wanted to explore. Unfortunately for her, I had no interest whatsoever. It was our first time attending one of their gatherings, but Sharon had heard about them through a mutual acquaintance and somehow scored us an invitation. My wife of 10 years had failed to inform me that the party we were attending that evening had an unconventional conclusion. She hadn't mentioned beforehand that at this gathering all the wives were expected to place their house keys in a bowl. After the keys were thoroughly mixed, the husbands would blindly select a key from the bowl and escort the owner of that key to their master suite bed for a night of intimate, adulterous pleasure. As the party neared its end and I suddenly realized what was about to happen, I was on the verge of losing control. I had never been so furious with Sharon. I grabbed her by the arm and pulled her into the kitchen. Did you know this party would end like this? She smirked at me. Yes. And you didn't think to warn me about that before we came? No, because I knew you wouldn't agree to come unless you had no other choice. I absolutely won't agree, and I always have a choice. Let's leave. Stan, we can't leave now. It wouldn't be polite. You'll embarrass me. Besides, it's just for one night. It'll bring some excitement back into our marriage. I can do without that kind of excitement. Let's excuse ourselves and go. We need some excitement, Stan. I need some excitement. Just for one night, I want to feel like a woman, not just a wife and mother. It's only one night once, and it won't happen again. Besides, I've already put our house key in the bowl, so it's too late to back out now. I declared defiantly. It's not too late. I'll show you. Grabbing her arm, I led her forcefully back into the living room where everyone gathered around a bowl filled with keys, ready to choose their partner for the night. Sharon resisted, trying to break free until I released her. Stepping up to the bowl, I spoke loudly. Excuse me, but this part of the evening wasn't disclosed to me, and I'm not willing to share my wife with any of you. I rummaged in the bowl until I found the house key she had placed there, recognizable by its red plastic cover. Removing it, I turned to face the stunned partygoers. As I said, I wasn't informed of these party rules before my wife brought me here. I don't condone adultery, and my wedding vows are sacred. There were murmurs and hostile glances, but I ignored them, focusing on my wife, who looked furious. Sharon, you have a choice. Decide now. Come with me and leave this madness behind, or stay and never come home again. I'm leaving. All attention turned to my wife, whose face turned bright red with shame. She looked defiant for a moment. I apologize to all of you for my husband's rude behavior. I would like to stay, but obviously I should leave given the circumstances. Reluctantly and angrily, she followed me to the car. You are an insufferable, selfish idiot, she screamed at me. How dare you embarrass me like that in front of these people? We will never be invited there again. Embarrassing you, Sharon? What about the fact that you embarrassed me by not telling me about your plans to cheat on me with another man tonight? Well, you were supposed to be with one of the other wives, so we would both benefit. I couldn't believe my ears. I don't want to have an affair with another woman, Sharon. This is a very personal matter that I leave to my wife. I am very upset to find out that after 10 years of marriage, you want to be with another man. It would only be one time, Frank. Among the hundreds of nights we've been married and will spend together. This is just one night with someone else. Am I asking too much after being a good wife for the last 10 years? Actually, Sharon, I'm asking too much. I'm shocked by what I'm hearing, but it obviously means a lot to you, doesn't it? Yes, Frank, it is. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. This is the only night I don't have to be a wife and mother. I want to have an adventure, feel like a woman, and yes, lock myself in a bedroom with another man for a few hours. Don't you mean a single night of intimacy with someone other than your husband, with some stranger? Well, it's a bit overt, but yes, that's an important part of it. Perhaps the most important part. Yes. I hit the brakes, turned 180 degrees in the middle of the street, and raced back to the Vanderlink house. Sharon screamed when I spun around. What are you doing, Frank? If one night with another man means so much to you, Sharon, then go ahead and do it. I stopped in front of their house. It seemed like all the other cars were there. Looks like you're not too late to join the party yet. So get out and enjoy your night with some random guy. I hope you find what you've been wanting for so long. Frank, this is just an adventure, something new. You're perfect. But I can't go alone. We both have to participate. Each of us should go with a new partner for the night. I've already told you, Sharon, I don't want to be a part of this. I've never cheated on you, and I won't until we end the marriage. What does that mean? It means exactly what I said. It's time for you to make a decision, Sharon. If you decide to do this, then go away and be with your cheating friends. I'm sure they'll include a beautiful woman in their little plan, even if she's not with her husband. Sharon hesitated, her hand on the doorknob, her mind clearly racing. Her tone softened when she asked me, "Could you pick me up tomorrow morning, no matter where I stay the night? I'll call and let you know where I am." It would mean a lot to me. Frank replied sharply, "No way. I'm sure your new boyfriend will be happy to give you a ride after spending the night with you." Sharon sighed. "Frank, that sounds so rude coming from you. He won't be my lover, just someone new for one night. You're the only man I've ever loved or will ever love." Frank challenged her distrust. "Do you really think you can love me and do this? You're just looking for someone new to be intimate with, right?" Sharon defended herself. "That's rude, Frank. I'm on birth control. I won't get pregnant from him. It's just one night with a new person. It's going to be exciting. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be with someone new? It could make our relationship even better. Enjoy being close to someone new and experience different sensations, Sharon. I hope you understand the choice you're making." "It's just one night, Frank. It's okay. Even one moment is too much for me. We have our whole life ahead of us. If you go through with this, we won't have anything in common. Please, Sharon, I'm begging you for the last time. Don't do this." "You're overreacting, Frank. I am firm in my decision. I'm not going to let you ruin my evening. I just want to spend some time with someone else, and you can't stop me. I'm going to do it. And you're going to have to accept it and move on, do you hear me? Tomorrow morning I'll be all yours again and make you forget about everything that ever happened. Tomorrow morning you'll be a part of the past. I won't desire you anymore after you've let another man have what I always considered mine. Now you're being ridiculous. I belong to you alone, and you'll want me, I'll ensure that. Sharon, look at me. I'm deadly serious. If you get out of this car and go back into that house, it's over between us. Your one night will cost you your husband and your family. No, it won't, Frank. I won't let that happen. We're married, and we always will be. We're meant to be together. I love you, and I know how much you love me. We'll get through this, you'll see." I'll make it up to you 1,000 times over. You're breaking my heart, Sharon. Don't be such a baby. Think of it as sending me on an exciting adventure. Exciting for you, but the tragic end for us. Once again, you're being silly, Frank. I'll change your mind in the morning, and you know exactly how I'll do it. Do you honestly think I would touch your body after you spent the night with some stranger? You'll touch me, Frank, and much more. I'll make sure of it. God, I never realized how foolish you are. Get out. My words stunned her, but she opened the car door and began to step out. I'll see you in the morning, Frank. I shook my head sadly and sighed. No, Sharon, you won't. As soon as she pushed the door to close it, I slammed on the accelerator and peeled out, leaving skid marks for half a block as I sped away. Glancing in the rearview mirror as I rocketed down the street, I saw her standing on the curb, looking completely stunned, mouth agape. She hadn't moved as I turned the corner, and she disappeared from sight. In my heart, I hoped she would call me immediately, admitting she was wrong and asking me to come back for her. But she didn't. I was devastated and shocked. Tears were streaming down my cheeks, blurring my vision. My wife has just agreed to spend the night with a stranger in the 10 years of our marriage together. Judging by her behavior, she thought that I would easily forgive her indiscretion. Maybe she thought that I would be angry for a couple of days, and then she could take me to the bedroom and get her forgiveness. She was deeply mistaken. My father once told me that if a woman is seriously thinking about intimacy with another man, then mentally she has already crossed this line. If she is married and seriously considering it, then she has already broken her vows. It's one thing to admire someone attractive and be surprised, but actively planning for it to happen is a betrayal. As much as it hurts to admit it, Sharon ruined our marriage, and it's time to move on. The real tragedy in all this is our 3 children, 9-year-old Jocelyn, 8-year-old Rebecca Ann, and 4-year-old Frank Jr. How could I live without them every day? But I couldn't let Sharon's actions go unpunished. The children were with my mother for the weekend, giving me time to contemplate my next steps. I drove aimlessly for 30 minutes, hoping Sharon might call me to pick her up, but it soon became clear she had made her decision. Eventually, I settled on a tentative plan and headed home. Just as I pulled into the driveway, my phone rang. I wished it was Sharon asking for a ride, but the caller ID revealed it wasn't her. I answered nonetheless. In the background, I could hear music and laughter from a party, and a man spoke. "Frank, old buddy, it's Rick Wilson from the party you skipped out on. Your lovely wife passed me your number. Seems she's hoping I can knock some sense into you. She's quite the firecracker tonight, talking about what's in store, and you're a lucky guy. Everyone here hopes to draw her key. She keeps saying someone's in for a night to remember. She wants you to be a part of it too. Things are heating up. Everyone's eager to find out who's going home with whom. You still have time to join us and pick a key. There are some hot ladies here ready to give you a wild time. Go to hell, Rick Wilson, you manipulative bastard, and everyone else at your damn party, including my cheating wife." "I hope you all rot." I cut him off and went inside. In less than 20 minutes, I packed 2 suitcases with enough clothes for a week or 2. I grabbed my laptop and shaving kit, loaded everything into the car. After rifling through a few drawers, I found our marriage license, tore it into pieces, then smashed my wedding ring with a hammer until it flattened. Once done, I left the pieces and ring on Sharon's pillow, locked the door behind me, and drove off into the night. I planned to find a motel a few miles outside of town, but first I swung by the Vanderlinks again. Several cars had already departed from the party, and a few people lingered outside, chatting as they paired off for the night. Sharon wasn't among them, so I assumed she had either left already with her new lover or had managed to pair up with Mr. Vanderlink himself. The motel I eventually stopped at was in the next town over. It didn't look like much, but it had parking in the back, which would help keep my car out of sight in case anyone decided to look for it. After securing the car, I bought a 6-pack of Newcastle at the convenience store next door and decided to watch some television. The first 2 beers had relaxed me, and as I opened the third, my phone rang. It was Sharon, but I was certain she wasn't calling me to come and get her, so I let it go to voicemail. "Frank, you're really upset about this. Rick Wilson told me what you told him. I already told you it's just for one night. I just spend time with a new guy a few times. It doesn't mean I'm promiscuous. I promise that I will definitely repay you when I come back tomorrow, even if I feel a little uncomfortable. By the way, since you took the key to our house from the basket, I got a new one. The guy who has it now is named Glenn. He's married. He has kids just like us. Since you're at our house, I came home with him. His wife and her boyfriend will also stay here for the night, but in another part of the house, so we won't interfere with each other when it gets noisy. You know how loud I can get when we're close," she giggled. "Honey, I know you're upset, but I promise not to do anything to him that I haven't done to you. I suggested to Glenn that we stick to the usual things. Glenn agreed, especially since this is my first time with someone else. Tomorrow, when we're done, he'll give me a ride home. I'll take a shower and clean myself up so that I'll be clean and not eat anything by the time you arrive. Have a nice sleep, dear. I'll see you in the morning and I'll be ready to have some fun. I love you, Frank." I felt like I was about to throw up. I never thought before that I was married to such a stupid and promiscuous woman. Of course, Sharon has always been a little frivolous, but before that it was part of her captivating charm. Now her frivolous behavior was off the scale, and it cost her our marriage and possibly her relationship with our children. I couldn't imagine taking her back after she cheated on me and threw it in my face. I'm sure everyone at the party laughed heartily at me. I was furious, offended, and deeply humiliated, and my wife didn't care at all. I knew I should have ignored her call, but I couldn't help myself. I dialed her number, and she answered on the 3rd ring. "Hi, honey, Glenn and I just got into bed and we got cozy, so I can't talk for long." "Shut up, Sharon. This may be the last time you hear from me. You have no idea what you've just done, but you'll find out soon enough. Enjoy talking to Glenn, because the consequences will be greater than you can imagine. Understand this, Sharon. As soon as Glenn touches you, our marriage will be over. It's over. I never thought I'd say this, but right now I hate you more than I've ever loved you. I can't wait to finally break up with you. My lawyer will give you the documents next week." And with that, I hung up the phone. After 30 seconds, my phone rang again. It was her. I switched it back to voicemail. "Frank," she said in a trembling voice on the verge of tears. "Why are you acting like this? How can you say such things to me? I'm your wife. Can't you just give me this evening? Glenn and I have just started and you're ruining everything for me. I'm not asking for a divorce. I'll be home in the morning and we can sort this out. I would go home now, but I promised Glenn that I would spend the evening with him. Please try to understand. I need to do this. He has my key, and I promised him that he would be able to stay with me tonight. He really wants it now. Oh yes, right now while we're talking. I have to go. Glenn's there. He's ready. I love you, Frank. I will always love you. Please don't tell me that our marriage broke up because of this. I can't help myself. He's already ready. Please try to understand." And then I heard her whisper to him, "Do it, Glenn. This is my night. See you in the morning, dear." Once again, I couldn't resist. I called her back, and this time the phone rang several times before switching to voicemail, obviously because Glenn was already busy with my wife. So, I left a message. "It's clear from your last voicemail that Glenn is already with you and you like it. You will spend the night with him, experiencing new sensations. Sharon, you broke my heart, and I will never forgive you." It's commendable that you kept your promise to Glenn, the man you just met, but you couldn't keep our marriage vows after 10 years of my love and loyalty. I won't know who you've become. You won't see me in the morning, maybe never again. Next week, expect divorce papers with accusations of adultery. Now that Glenn satisfies you the way only I should, you're officially a cheating woman. From now on, you can sleep with any man you want, but know this: you've lost me forever, and that's a promise I intend to keep. Sharon didn't call me back. I knew she was busy diving into her private world where nothing existed but her and the man she was with. Whether she received my last message didn't matter. The damage was irreversible. Our marriage was ruined. I could never forgive her for the complete disrespect and humiliation or the ridicule she made of our relationship. I finished the rest of the 6 cans, not wanting to spend the night imagining my wife cheating on me. Sharon spoke loudly during the intimacy. Probably she is also talking to her lover now. The beer helped me fall asleep, although tears were still streaming down my face. I woke up 4 hours later, and reality hit me again. My once beautiful wife had taken a lover, and now I needed a plan to protect my children, cut her out of my life, and make everyone at the party feel as miserable as I did. We reside in Biloxi, Mississippi, a picturesque antebellum community on the Gulf of Mexico. Since Mississippi considers adultery grounds for divorce, this could potentially exempt me from paying alimony and might even improve my chances of gaining custody of my children. I needed a top-notch lawyer. After showering and changing clothes, I called my mother at 7:30 to inform her of the situation. She was just as surprised as I was by Sharon's actions. My kids were with her for the weekend, and she assured me she wouldn't discuss anything with them. I promised to retrieve them once I had a plan in place. I suspected Sharon would likely be granted custody, at least temporarily. It pained me to admit it, but until last night she had been a devoted mother to our children and a loyal wife to me. After finishing my call with my mom, I headed straight to the diner nearby the motel for breakfast. No sooner had I parked and started towards the door, my phone rang. It was Sharon. I debated answering but chose to let it go to voicemail. Strangely, she didn't leave a message. Instead, she called back immediately. Ignoring her first few calls, she persisted until the 5th attempt, finally leaving a message in tears. "Damn it, Frank, answer the damn phone. Talk to me. What do you mean I may never see you again? And what's this talk about divorce papers? You can't leave me, Frank. I won't allow it. We have 3 precious babies who need us both." My God, Frank, why did you destroy our marriage license and smash your wedding ring? How could you do that? I gave you that ring on our wedding day, and you vowed to wear it forever. It's a symbol of our eternal love. I knew you'd be a little upset with me, but I never expected you to react like this. Frank, I love you very much, but I really needed last night with Glenn. It was something special. He made me feel young again. I'd already forgotten what it felt like to laugh and feel alive. But no matter how amazing last night was, you're the only one I have, Frank. I know how to make amends and heal your grievances. Please come home so I can show you how much I love you. Come home and pick me up. Let's live together. At that moment, she started crying, and it became difficult for me to understand her. Damn you, Frank. Why can't you understand that I just needed one night with someone else? I needed to feel wanted by another man. It was incredibly nice to know that someone else found me beautiful enough to want to be with him. You have no idea how inspiring that is for a woman my age. Please, Frank, you have to understand. It was just intimacy, nothing more. Please, Frank, talk to me. I love you. You and our children are everything to me. Her voice became weaker. It was just intimacy, Frank. Oh my God. It was only a few times and it didn't mean anything. That's all it was, Frank. We were just close. And she continued to sob until the message ended. I was standing outside the door of the diner, completely stunned. Had she harbored these thoughts throughout our marriage only for them to surface now that she was over 30? Sharon is still strikingly beautiful. 5 feet 5 inches tall, 130 pounds, dark brown shoulder-length hair, light blue eyes, and a stunning figure. So why did she suddenly feel the need to be desired by another man? I always showed her my love and desire, regularly brought her flowers, took her out weekly, and bought her something attractive. I remind her daily how beautiful she is and how much I love her. Until last night, I thought our bed life was fantastic. What the hell did I miss? I completely lost my appetite, but I decided to go to the cafe anyway. I found an empty table, ordered scrambled eggs, toast, and black coffee. I ate less than half of my breakfast, but managed to drink at least 6 cups of coffee. I've never felt so abandoned, so devastated before. I've heard people talk about wanting to go to another world, and now I know exactly what they meant. The only thing that kept me going was the thought of my children. I had to stay alive for them. I had to deal with this unbearable situation that Sharon had created and build a future for them. This thought alone gave me strength and determination. I'm going to persevere. I just needed to figure out how to do it. Sharon called me several times that day, but I switched each call to voicemail. She begged for understanding, but never apologized for her actions. It wasn't an admission of error. Instead, she insisted that I support her that one evening. They were intimate only 3 times that night and once more in the morning. How could I not understand that it was just a fleeting one-night stand that is easy to forgive and forget? She admitted that she was worried that she hadn't turned off her phone in time, and I could have overheard their conversation for the first time, just at the moment when Glenn turned out to be very close. She hoped I hadn't heard much. I had to give her credit. She knew exactly how to stab me in the heart and turn the knife. I couldn't believe she could be so reckless. There's a silver lining. I figured I now had enough audio evidence of her infidelity to use against her in court. I wasn't sure if the audio evidence alone would be enough, but it was convincing and left no doubt. I decided to find a good lawyer tomorrow and gather all the necessary information. I went to visit my children at my mom's place. She told me that Sharon had already called to check on the kids and asked if she knew where I was. Mom informed her that I was deeply upset about what she had done and didn't want to see or talk to her. Obviously, Sharon started crying, saying that I didn't understand anything, and my mom told her in response that no man could understand how a wife could flaunt a night of intimacy with another man in front of her husband. Sharon asked if she should come get the kids, but my mom suggested it might be best for her to keep them a few extra days until things calmed down. The kids were happy to see me, but asked where their mom was. I told them she was busy with an important project and they would stay with Grandma a bit longer. We played games, had dinner together, and then I hugged and kissed them goodbye before heading back to my motel. Tomorrow would be a busy day. I had one last thing to do before calling it a night. Well, more like a drive-by. I passed by my house, and the sight of it immediately brought tears to my eyes again. Tears for what I had lost and would never regain. I was somewhat surprised not to see any unfamiliar cars parked in the driveway. Perhaps some guy's vehicle was in the garage, but seeing only the kitchen light on downstairs, I felt confident Sharon was alone, at least for tonight. Then it dawned on me I still cared about her. No, I wouldn't take her back after what she'd done, but the thought of her betrayal cut me deeply. I tried to resist the urge to stop and spy on her, but I couldn't resist. I parked a block away and approached the side of the house where I could peek into the kitchen window. There she was, sitting at the table with an empty Grey Goose bottle beside her. Her hair was disheveled, mascara streaks down her face. She wore a robe, head resting on the table, facing me with closed eyes. It was clear she had been crying, surrounded by what looked like a whole box of tissues. For a brief moment I felt pity, but then the memory of her actions toward me and our children turned my pity into cold rage. I wanted to scream at her, but instead I walked back to my car and drove off. Strangely, I felt a small sense of satisfaction. Perhaps she was finally beginning to comprehend the gravity of her actions. If she sought sympathy, she could turn to her lover, Glenn. Monday arrived early, bringing a full agenda. I started my day with breakfast at the diner, opting for eggs, toast, and black coffee, which I managed to finish for once. Afterward, I made calls to my mother and each of my children, reassuring them of my love and promising to see them soon. Next, I contacted work to inform my executive assistant that I would be attending to personal matters over the next 2 days. I instructed her to reach out if anything urgent arose. Sensing her concern, I admitted something was amiss but deferred details. Reflecting on my time at Ole Miss, where I shared an apartment with close friends Douglas Prather III and Maxwell McCrae during my final year, I decided to seek their counsel. Despite our infrequent meetups, we've maintained our friendship over the years. While my focus was in computer science, Doug pursued business administration and Max went on to become a lawyer. I phoned Doug first, arranging to meet both him and Max for drinks at the Lava Bar by the beach at 5. They agreed, sensing the gravity of the situation I needed to discuss. I arrived early, and shortly after 5, Max showed up. 10 minutes later, Doug joined us. We exchanged warm greetings and found a table on the patio. After ordering drinks, we raised our glasses in a toast. "What's going on, Frank?" Doug asked. "Your phone call sounded serious." "Sharon cheated on me and made sure I knew about it," I confided, then proceeded to tell them everything. "Damn, that's rough, man," Doug sympathized. "I can't wrap my head around her doing something like that," added Max. "Me neither. She did it without any shame or remorse, and she thinks I'm the one overreacting. Can you believe that?" "What do you want to do now?" Max inquired. "I want a divorce, and I want to make sure Glenn and those assholes at the party face consequences, but most importantly, I want to try to get custody of my kids." "That might not be easy," cautioned Max, "unless she's been a bad mother. If she's bringing random guys home and doing things while the kids are there, then you have a case. Otherwise, if she's a good mother, she'll likely get custody and you'll end up paying child support. I can accept that, as long as I can still see them whenever I want." "That sounds feasible," Max replied. "The courts generally aim for both parents to be actively involved in raising the children, provided they are both capable." "What about finances?" Doug interjected. "Sharon stays at home with the kids, and from what I gather, you earn a substantial 6-figure salary. How much do you have in your bank accounts, both checking and savings? Any investments, 401ks, IRAs?" "I have all of the above. When I add it all up, it's probably around 700,000 or 800,000, maybe a bit more." "The courts will likely split that right down the middle. They'll give Sharon the house and custody. But if you can prove she committed adultery, and it sounds like you have a good case, you might not have to pay alimony. Do you happen to know a really good divorce lawyer?" "As it happens, one of the partners at my firm is one of the top family law attorneys in Mississippi. Her name's Maddie Simmons. Would you like me to set up a meeting for you?" "Absolutely, the sooner the better. In the meantime," Doug added, "let's see what we can do to protect some of your assets. Send me all the details about your finances and I'll get to work on it." We raised our glasses once more, had a few more drinks, and bid each other good night. Suddenly, I felt better than I had since this whole ordeal began. As I drove back to my motel, my mind racing with all I had to do, my phone rang, and it was Sharon. After a brief hesitation, I realized I couldn't avoid her forever, so I pulled over and answered. "What do you want, Sharon?" I cut to the chase. "What do you think I want, Frank?" "I want my husband back home where he belongs." I could hear the strain in her voice. "Well, your little escapade with Glenn makes any reconciliation impossible," I stated bluntly. She started sobbing. "Don't say that, Frank. Don't you dare say that. It was just one night after 10 years together. Not grounds for divorce. Think again. In Mississippi, that's adultery," I replied. "Why do you keep calling it adultery? It was just one night, a fling with someone new. When a married woman engages in intimacy with someone new, whether for one night or for a moment, it is adultery." "Oh God, please, Frank, you can't do this to me." "You did it yourself, Sharon. What happened to you? Are you taking illegal substances? Are you having a mental breakdown?" Or are you just incredibly stupid? It seems like you were so fixated on the idea of being with another man that you didn't give a damn about our kids or what I thought or what I wanted. You just had to do it. Well, you did it. And now you're responsible for the consequences. I thought we were really happy. We had a nice house, 3 wonderful children, and a wonderful bed life. And then you ruined everything by cheating on me with some stranger and poking me in the face. We've always been happy, Frank, and we're still happy now. I'm just wondering what it would be like to spend one night with another man in our long life together. Just to get to know someone new without hurting anyone. That's all. No harm? You don't seem to grasp the extent of the damage you've caused. In a single night, your selfishness has completely destroyed our family. You've shattered our lives into irreparable pieces. For starters, Sharon, you broke my heart, though it's clear you don't care about that. Remember me, your husband, the man who has loved you unconditionally since the moment I first saw you? The man who works tirelessly every day to provide the life you and the kids desire. You spat in my face and abandoned me to be with a complete stranger. You gave him parts of yourself that you vowed in a ceremony 10 years ago would be mine alone. You made the promise before God, our families, and our friends. Last night you rubbed my face in it, making it clear you would go through with it no matter how much I begged you not to. In fact, you told me to go to hell by insisting that you would do whatever you wanted and that it was none of my business. I never thought it would turn out this way, Frank. I don't know why, but I didn't think I was hurting you. I just wanted to try something new. I love you. It was never about you, it was what I needed. And that's what caused all this. You've upset your husband. Your whole stunt with Glenn last night was all about you and him, without any thought of me or your kids. I deserve a special evening, just for myself. Well, congratulations, Your Royal Highness, you have achieved your goal. But it cost you your marriage to me and probably your reputation in the eyes of your family and friends. There may come a day when I will forgive you, but I will never forget it. And I will make sure that everyone knows about what you did. Just like you called me a big kid for being upset about your infidelity, I'm going to see how you react when everyone hears your confession that you let Glenn. Oh my God, Frank, please, you can't do this. My parents will be devastated if they hear this. It's unfortunate, Sharon, but you should have thought about the consequences before you acted. You started this mess yourself, and now you have to deal with it. You seem to think that your actions are no more serious than a fine for violating traffic rules or not returning a library book. You ruined a 10-year marriage with a man who adored you for a one-night stand with a stranger who cared only about his own pleasure. Do you like it, Sharon? Was it worth losing your family for this? I didn't expect to lose anything, Frank. You were supposed to love me enough to support me and let me do it. No sane man would support his wife's affair just because she wanted to try something new for the night. It doesn't happen that way, and you should have known that. What were you thinking, Sharon? Why did you do that? I didn't think you'd be so upset about it. Seriously, Frank, what's wrong with that? Physically, it didn't change anything. I'm still here, waiting for you. What happened to Glenn doesn't mean I love you any less. I've heard about couples getting together at Vanderlink's, and it just made sense to me. Why can't a husband or wife spend an intimate night with a stranger, with someone nice and safe, enjoy and experience new feelings and sensations? I decided that I wanted and needed to test myself with another man. It doesn't mean that I love you less, Frank. It just means that I need a new experience. Then I will return your loyalty and never do that again. But it does mean you don't respect me. I asked you repeatedly, begged you not to do it, and you just smiled and said, "See you in the morning, Frank." You excluded me from an intimacy we've shared for over 10 years. The vows that meant little to you mean everything to me. Our union created 3 beautiful children who love both of us. We were a family, belonging exclusively to each other. Now you've willingly given the part of you that was mine to another man. And for what? To have a good time? A little one-night stand. You say it was just one night and I need to accept it and move on. I say it was nothing less than a complete and utter abandonment of me, your family, your sacred vow of loyalty and faithfulness, and any respect you ever had for me. You wanted to sleep with another man and you did it. Congratulations, you got what you wanted. But what you really did, Sharon, was throw everything you supposedly valued into the gutter. Part of me still loves you, but I will never be part of your life again. Damn it, Frank, why are you so stubborn? Why can't you understand that it was just something I needed and move on? I'm yours forever. Nothing has changed. Everything has changed, Sharon. You're no longer exclusively mine. I can't understand why you ignored my pleas and did what you did. I can't forgive or forget. You knowingly betrayed me, and that wound will stay with me for the rest of my life. I've hired a lawyer and will be filing for divorce tomorrow on the grounds of adultery. I will name your lover Glenn and anyone else I can identify from your little gathering as part of the divorce proceedings. Just imagine the backlash when your adulterous friends find out you're responsible for breaking up their little club and potentially ruining their reputations. Go to hell, Sharon, and take all your little friends with you. The moment I walked into Matty Simmons Esquire's office, I felt like I had found the right attorney to help me navigate the chaos my life had become. She was straightforward and to the point. She wanted to know why I was seeking a divorce and what outcomes I hoped to achieve. I told her I fully expected to give up half of my assets to Sharon and that I was willing to negotiate, offering her our home in exchange for a smaller cash settlement. I also acknowledged that even with filing for adultery, I probably wouldn't get full custody of my kids, but I wanted unlimited access to them and did not want to pay her alimony. I played all the audio evidence I had of Sharon's infidelity, where she repeatedly admitted to spending the night with Glenn. Ms. Simmons shook her head in disbelief, finding it hard to believe that my wife was so naive that she couldn't understand why I was upset about her affair, and even more so that she would willingly admit to it in a voicemail that could be used against her in court. We will likely need to get a voice recognition expert to verify that it is your wife's voice, she told me. But unless we get a really bad judge, the recording should be admissible in court. We spent the remaining hour discussing my goals regarding this Glenn guy and the others at the wife-swapping party. She doubted we could obtain any financial compensation from them, but believed we could expose their activities and publicly embarrass them, causing them significant distress. I told her that would be more than satisfactory for me. I gave her a retainer and asked her to serve Sharon as soon as possible. She assured me it wouldn't take long and promised to inform me before it happened. On Tuesday afternoon, I picked up my kids from my mom and took them back to Susan at the house. When she opened the door, she gave the three of them big hugs and kisses. Then she reached out for me, but I stepped back, causing her to tear up and plead with me to stay. I told her I couldn't, but I thought it was good for the kids to be back home with her and that I would pick them up on Friday to spend the weekend with me. Sharon looked like she was struggling, and I felt for her, but she had brought this on herself. Her tough time was no worse than what I was enduring because of her actions. On Wednesday, I returned to work. I knew I couldn't neglect my responsibilities. I needed my job now more than ever, not just for the income, but also for the mental distraction. I felt that if I continued to dwell on the pain and self-pity caused by Sharon's betrayal, I might lose my sanity, something I couldn't afford for my child's sake. On Thursday, I met Doug and Max again, this time for dinner at the Half-Shell Oyster House, where I had a great fondness for their char-broiled hand-shucked oysters and dirty martinis. Over dinner and drinks, I updated them on my kids and the divorce. Doug had looked into ways to protect some of my money, and I gave him the go-ahead. It wasn't much, but it would help in the long run. Together, we devised a relatively simple plan to cause some trouble for the Wife Swap Club without risking any legal issues. Max had a good friend who was a reporter for the Biloxi Sun-Herald. Max was confident that if I provided him with the location of the Vanderlinks' home and the approximate times the wife-swapping group met, his friend could uncover the names of at least some of the participants. He could then write an editorial suggesting that wife swapping was more prevalent in Biloxi than people realized. By capturing a few photos of couples arriving and leaving these meetings and subtly implying that certain business owners might be involved without directly naming them, enough controversy could be stirred up by the religious community to seriously disrupt the group. I shared the little information I had with Max, and he promised to get started on it. With that bit of encouragement, we shook hands and parted ways until next time. Over the weekend, I had an amazing time with my children. We went shopping for new clothes, watched a Disney movie at the Grand 18 in D'Iberville, and spent a whole day at the beach, swimming and playing frisbee. My kids mean everything to me, and I promised myself I would never abandon them. On Monday morning, I received a call from Max. His friend at the Sun-Herald liked the story idea and was figuring out how to capture photos of the couples entering Vanderlinks and leaving with new partners. Their faces would be blurred, but in a small town like this, people would likely piece it together soon enough. If everything fell into place, it could end up as a front-page story later in the week. I kept my fingers crossed. Sharon continued to call, pleading for me to come home. She promised she would do whatever it took to make me forget what she had done, but she never once apologized or admitted her mistake. On Wednesday, I received a series of updates that significantly affected me. Firstly, my attorney informed me that Sharon would be served with divorce papers at our home Friday morning. Secondly, Doug revealed a strategy to protect a portion of my finances by transferring them into my children's names. Lastly, Max phoned to report that his journalist friend had uncovered plans for a gathering of swinging wife swappers at the Vanderlinks on Friday night. Max intended to stake out the scene from an unmarked van across the street, planning to capture photos and interview attendees for an upcoming newspaper article. Friday arrived with anticipation. As expected, Sharon called shortly after being served. It was no surprise. My lawyer confirmed the delivery at 2:30, and moments later, Sharon's number flashed on my phone. I chuckled to myself, wondering what she could possibly want this time. Initially considering letting it go to voicemail, I changed my mind. "Hi, Sharon, how are you?" "What have you done, Frank?" Her tone was far from friendly. "I filed for divorce, as I promised you." "And I told you that there would be no divorce, and you're saying this is adultery?" "One night with another man doesn't count as adultery, Frank." "I beg to differ, Sharon. According to Mississippi law, adultery includes exactly what you did that night." There were tears in her voice. "Why are you so cruel, Frank? I love you. It was just an affair with Glenn." "I'm sorry, Sharon. I must have misunderstood that adultery implies intimacy with someone other than your spouse. My mistake. It's over, Sharon. I warned you, but you didn't listen. Now you have to face the consequences, and I think you'll realize that your problems aren't over yet. Goodbye, Sharon. Have a miserable life." I hung up on that. My biggest problem was that I still love Sharon, and probably always will. But I'll never be able to trust her again, and I won't be able to stay married to a woman who's cheating on me. I knew I should have avoided Vanderlink's house on Friday night, but I couldn't resist driving by once just to see what was going on. I was particularly curious if Sharon's car would be there, though I had a strong feeling she wouldn't attend the party, at least not this time. Unsurprisingly, her car wasn't in sight. It crossed my mind that she might have gone with someone else. Despite knowing they typically only allowed couples, they had made an exception for her once before, so who's to say they wouldn't do it again? I did spot a van parked across from the house, presuming the reporter was staked out inside. I silently wished him luck in catching them red-handed. It didn't take long for results to surface. The following afternoon, Max's reporter friend called me requesting some insider information, which I willingly provided. He mentioned snapping over 100 photos and recognizing over a dozen of the city's esteemed couples, who oddly didn't appear to be the same pairs leaving the residence 2 hours later. Max had shown him a picture of my wife to aid in identification, and he assured me she was not among those seen entering or exiting Vanderlink's home. He requested that I recount my experience from the one occasion I had been inside the house during one of the key parties. I tried my best to describe how the keys were placed into a large bowl. Although I never witnessed the moment when men randomly selected a key and left with the woman it corresponded to, I did gain a clear understanding of what was going to occur from my wife's account and overhearing other couples discuss their past party experiences. Before we ended the call, he asked if he could imply that he knew of at least one marriage that had ended due to these parties, causing children to suffer through their parents' divorce. I agreed as long as no names were mentioned. The article was published in the Sunday edition of the newspaper, causing a major uproar. It featured front-page news with a large photo of couples entering and leaving, their faces blurred, spanning 4 additional pages with numerous photos. Despite efforts to conceal identities, many participants were easily recognizable by their distinctive cars and clothing. These were prominent members of Biloxi society, making the story and the involved parties the talk of the town by Monday. Several ministers appeared on radio and TV to discuss the perceived moral decline in their Christian community, while civic leaders lamented the erosion of traditional values in the Southern Gem. Lawsuits were filed, businesses suffered losses, and some couples ended up in divorce court. Personally, I found it all amusing, a fitting punishment for the suffering I endured following the loss of my wife and family breakup. Even if some realized I had been betrayed, I was indifferent. I had achieved my revenge, and that was all that mattered to me. Sharon spent months trying to reconcile with me, but I couldn't return to her. Our divorce was finalized, and now I have joint custody of our kids. During the months I have them, Sharon takes them on weekends, and vice versa when they're with her. It's not ideal, but we're making it work. By the way, since Sharon didn't contest anything in the divorce, I decided not to share the recordings of her confessing her infidelity with her family or friends. Regarding the couples involved in the key parties, many of them ended up divorced and moved away. Some might say they were driven out of town. As for Sharon and me, she's started dating again. I'm not sure she fully understands why her actions were unacceptable to me, but that's her concern now. I wish her future husband all the best. I've dated several nice women, but haven't found the one I want to spend my life with yet. A few have suggested moving in with me, but I'm still cautious about giving someone that kind of access.